We're back tonight with another soup recipe, but I wanted to take a moment just to emphasize one of the great things about soup is its versatility. When we have a soup recipe, a lot of times we can make substitutions without making a significant change to the recipe. It ends up being a recipe that's still really flavorful, it really works, and that's one of the things I'm going to show you tonight. I'm going to be posting this recipe. I've been using it for many years in class, but I'm going to show you the changes I make at home based on picky eaters, based on what I have in my cabinet. Especially today, you know, the stay-at-home order's been extended another 30 days. We're limited on the number of trips we take to the grocery store, so sometimes we don't quite have what we need for a recipe in stock. But since it's not baking, which is more of an exact science, for soup making, we can make substitutions and still get a great product. Is it going to be exactly the same as the recipe intended? No. But it may even be better. And you may be onto something that really works for you and your family. So, without further ado and more babbling from me, we are going to get straight to making baked potato soup. We'll call it the Miss Yargis way. I'm going to throw in a few cheats tonight. Alright, for my baked potato soup, I always start with bacon. The recipe calls for 3 strips of bacon for a single batch. That would be, I'd say, 6 strips for a double batch, which is what I always make as a double batch. But I don't always have bacon in the house, or I don't have it thawed out, and so now I've got to go down to the freezer, and it's a complication. So what I've started doing is keeping the fully cooked bacon already in my cabinet, and it gives instructions for cooking this in the microwave, and I don't. Okay, I have learned that I can cook this in my soup pan, and I never cook just 3 strips of bacon. Let's face it, I cook the whole pound of bacon, and I use it for other recipes. So that's my first cheat tonight. Is I'm going to start with pre-cooked bacon. And I am using my soup pot, about medium heat. Okay. What I like about the pre-cooked bacon is I can keep it right in the cabinet, and this expires May 21st. Okay, so it can be in there for a little. I've probably had it over 2 or 3 weeks, because it's one of those things that when I go through the grocery store, actually I've probably had a little longer than that, I can just grab and throw right in my cart. So what I'm going to do, I don't need oil. I'm not going to get a lot of fat out of this, but it will crispen up a bit and leave just a little bit of fat in my pan. So again, I'm using my soup pan. I'm sticking my arm in the way. I'm just going to lay out the bacon in there and fry it until it gets crispy. Now, I'm just doing this to get a little fat out and to crispen it up. I'm not doing this because it needs to be cooked. I could throw it in the microwave. It's just not as delicious. This is my flavor. And it doesn't take as long to fry. It doesn't spatter as much. I am doing this as a 1-dish meal. It's another awesome thing about this is there's just not a lot of dishes, not a lot of mess. Okay, I'm going to turn my heat down to low here so I don't get it too hot. Alright, so there's, oh, that one burned just a touch. Just a little bit of bacon fat in there. Okay, not enough. I need 2 tablespoons. So what I have is my little jar of magic. That escaped. Okay, and it's just a canning jar. I can occasionally, so I have a little bit of this left over. So what I do is I keep a little bit of strained bacon fat in a jar in my fridge. So I can just take out a couple tablespoons as needed for recipes that require it. So this is my cheat. Granted, you probably don't have a jar of bacon fat in your fridge. Not that many people do. So you can just use canola oil with that little bit of bacon grease from the pre-cooked bacon. You still get that bacony flavor. You can see it melts really quickly too. Okay, so I'm going to bring that up to about medium-low, because that's my oven tends to cook pretty good at that temperature. It's about 3 to 4 on my little dial. There we go. Okay. To this, you would typically add some onion. Now, I don't even have an onion in the house right now. I did not grab one when I went grocery shopping. So that's not happening. And I have found that this recipe works without the onion. It's actually still really tasty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic that it calls for, and I forgot to get out. That's the crushing you're hearing. I gotta find my garlic stuff. And I'm just gonna go ahead and add a little garlic. But you would add that onion in. So now I'm just gonna add a clove of garlic, minced. That'll give a little flavor, kind of gives you a slightly different dimension. And then I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of flour straight in there. I'm going to go ahead and put the salt in with that. That's 2 teaspoons of salt. Remember, I'm doing a double batch. I could have added more garlic if I wanted to. But I actually don't want a strong garlic flavor. And I find crushing's good enough to get a good flavor in there. So what I do is I tend to cook my flour a little bit to kind of get that raw flour taste out. While I'm doing that, I'm going to add my pepper and that was a teaspoon of pepper, fresh ground, and 2 teaspoons of basil. And there's going to be a lot of fragrance with this. I'm actually going to pull that garlic off there. Alright, so I cooked that just a little bit. And you see it really clumps up because there's so much flour and so little fat. Okay, to this, we're going to add 6 cups of chicken broth. Okay, and I do start out adding it slowly. I find when I dump it all in, I get lumps more than if I add it slowly. You do want it on the warmer side. So this is kind of at room temperature. It's a brand new container. Cold liquid will cause it to seize up and take it a little longer. I've tried going with less flour, and trust me, it will not thicken. If it really gets to giving me trouble, I can use a whisk. I'm going to add a little more broth before I do that, though. It smells incredible. You get the smokiness of the bacon, the pepper, and the basil just give it a little spiciness. I'm gonna scrape that off real quick. Okay, bring my heat up just a little. All right, so that's 2 minutes. And what I'm going to do now is add in the potatoes. I am using yellow potatoes, so these are the Yukon Golds. It's what I had in the house. Okay, some of the starch from the potatoes will help thicken the soup as well. So we're going to stir that in and we're going to let it cook for a few minutes while I go deal with somebody. See, it's thickened up a little more. Now the recipe did call for, you know, adding the heavy cream, because it does call for cream or half and half. I believe it's cream. I'm going to have to go check. Okay, they call it half and half cream. That's why I had both in my head. I'm going to be using 2%. I have found that this works with whole milk, heavy cream. It's a little rich with the heavy cream. The half and half, we've made it with half and half. We've made it with skim milk and had some success. Skim milk, it does tend to run a little thin. But I always like to cook the potatoes a little bit before I add the cream. Milk burns too easily. Okay, so you can see it's getting a nice boil to it. Now it's not quite as thick as I want it to be, and I don't know if it's going to thicken up like I want it to. So I'm going to actually start prepping for my next cheat. We'll see if we need it. Okay. It's looking good. I just don't know if it's going to do what I want it to. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add the milk. Like I said, it's not quite as thick as I want it to be. Not surprised since I'm doubling this. But there's a cheat, and I'm going to show it to you here in a little bit. Okay. And this is almost room temperature milk. It is not cold milk. I do get it out and let it warm up, or I warm it in the microwave. So it doesn't drop the temperature of my soup too much. And there we go. We just want to heat it through. We don't really want it to boil. I am going to get it to a simmer because it will work a little better on my next little step if it's simmering. That is just not quite thick enough yet. Okay, and this you want to stir a little more frequently because of those milk proteins that are going to want to stick and burn. Okay, at this point you could add up to half a teaspoon of hot sauce. Really does put a nice flavor in there without it getting too spicy. I'm just not sure I have any. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I do. Okay. So I'm only going to add about 1/4 of a teaspoon. I got someone here who isn't too into spice, but the flavor from this is just phenomenal. So I have 1/4 teaspoon. Put a few drips of this sauce in there. Okay. It's not much, but trust me, it'll work. Okay, so again, I took a basic recipe. The only thing I've really left out is the onions, because I don't have any. And I left out the, well, I switched the half and half for 2%. So those are the only changes I've made that way. I'm still using bacon fat, 2 tablespoons, but instead of buying raw bacon and frying it, I did cook up some microwave bacon just to get it crispy and to get a little bit of the flavor. Did it all in one pot. If you want to cook up the raw bacon, all you need is 1 pot, and then you can pour off the fat and put 2 tablespoons back in. Then let the fat harden and either throw it away or strain it out and put it in your fridge. And the next time you want baked potato soup, maybe you don't have bacon. We've had that happen too. Then you have that bacon fat to throw in there. It freezes, it keeps, it's starting to stick to the bottom. So I'm going to turn my heat down. It's not going to thicken. So it's time to add my little cheat. This is about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch in a little bit of water. I think a really thin oobleck. And you can actually feel it start to thicken. Okay, I think we're going to need all of it. So that's thickening up. Just going to let it bubble a bit, and then our soup will be ready. A little bit of heat. Okay, and this is a problem we've had a lot at school, where it doesn't want to thicken. And it may be something in the engineering of a recipe. Typically, you know, when we've made a roux, it's equal parts fat and flour, and we don't have that with this recipe. It's 3 tablespoons of flour to 1 tablespoon of fat. So I think that's a lot of the issue. So, and that's where the cornstarch comes in. And if you give it a low cook, you're not even going to know I did it. There we go. It's trying. But always dissolve that cornstarch. If you have to add it, dissolve it in a little bit of water. And it's still running on the thin side. So what you can do here is you can add more cornstarch, or you can eat it as is. I generally try to get it to bubble because then it'll thicken. Oh yeah, it's thickening. Alright, I'll see you when I serve this. Okay, so my soup is finally thickened and it's ready to serve.